And this was really a wake up call for me in this idea of not just telling a story, but but crafting a piece of art from beginning to the end. And whenever we're talking about books, the book itself ultimately is the art. Okay, so yes, what's inside, the story that you're telling and the characters that you're, exploring in the world that you're telling it in, all of this is your imagination made manifest. But that's not the art. The art is, the finished product itself. And every piece of the book writing and the book creation process goes to actually helping you tell your story better. And this was a big lesson that I had to learn, with Twisted Yarns. One, because the stories themselves were not great, and so I was after spent time away from those and came back to them, and I was like, oh, I should have done this here. I could have done that there. I should have
Yeah, yeah.
here. And it wasn't just like one or two instances of that. It was like a lot. And I said, wow, like this is not quality. And this is not something that you put your best self into. And
Yeah.
so, and then like I said, with the book itself, it didn't look well. There were weird pages and blank pages here, where they shouldn't be, and the page numbers were off, and it it was a nightmare, and it didn't look well. And what I think that one of the things, because I'm an avid reader too, I mean, and one of the things that I appreciate as a reader is sitting down with a well-crafted book.
Yeah.
That's something that pulls you into the story. You don't want to have to be like, oh, jolted out because there's some weird page break in the middle of, and then it's like, wait, what, what's going on here? Or, the editing was lackluster, or, that sort of stuff. There's all of these elements that can actually hurt the story that you're trying to tell, that are not actually, what we think of as like the fun part of
Yeah.
the writing and the creating the world and these characters and things like that. That's the fun part. But the equally important part, I would say, the more important part, is that final product, and how you shape and craft, what your story is going to look like, what your book is going to look like whenever you present it to the world. And that in itself is a work of art. And so, that was what Twisted Yarns taught me, is like, yeah, my buddy did a cool job on the cover. I still like it to this day, but like I couldn't finish reading my own book. And so whenever I realized that, I said, okay, we have to really figure this out. This labor intensive process of crafting this book that I had started with my first book, into this Twisted Yarns, and said, that uh this has to be, the part of your writing journey now that you really have to buckle down and start to make some sense of, because this is just as important as telling the story. And so, that's really whenever I started on that next phase of crafting stories instead of just telling stories. And that crafting extends to the editing process as well. And so that as part of that finished product. And so, what you're really doing is molding, your story into a work of art. And you can't just throw it out on the page and expect it to be, um as I lay dying or something.